Today, we will continue on with the 2023 NFL Draft prospect tier lists. And for those of you that know ball, you can tell by the bottom there that these are the running backs. So, pretty deep running back class this year, obviously with one generational talent. And I thought we'll just go start from there. On the left here, first guy up, Chase Brown, running back from Illinois. Pretty good, hard, tough-nosed runner. One of the better running backs that I know we faced, we being Michigan. So I have him as a B tier running back. I think he'll be a pretty good, solid guy. Good little change of pace back. If you have a bit more of a finesse guy, he's a bit more of a let's get physical in between the tackles, get some marks on my helmet guy. Absolutely love that type of player. So he will go there for me. Up next, Zach Charbonnet. Speaking of Michigan, the one-time Michigan Wolverine transferred out to UCLA and really did a great thing out there. When you think of Brian Kelly, and his offense, you think of all this finesse, go fast, pass the ball, slinging around the field. That was not the case when it came to Zach Charbonnet. He thrived in a, relatively speaking, pass-first offense. So for that, he gets an A tier running back for me, no questions asked. Up next, we have the Kansas State Wildcat running back, Deuce Vaughn. If you watch a lot of college football, you heard about him all the time, especially Gus Johnson screaming his name on Big Noon Kickoff, going crazy. Sick name, great celebration. Obviously can throw up the Tyreek Hill peace sign with his name, Deuce, and it's really cool. But he's 5'5", I think. Really small running back. Could be a cool gadget guy, but I don't think he's really going to be a every down back. So I have him as a C tier running back for now. I think he's a D tier running back, to be honest. Going forward, next guy up, we have Israel Adesanya. Izzy to the Hizzy, as he is known. Real good season at Pitt. Was a sneaky, really high rusher all year. But I don't know how much that's really going to attribute to the next level. Played against some pretty bad ACC defenses. I have him as a C tier, low C tier, high D tier running back. Eric Gray. He is the transfer over from Tennessee and played at Oklahoma. Pretty solid running back. I have him as a bottom B tier running back. I do like his game. He can catch passes when needed. Was one of the only stars and standouts on a a very bad Oklahoma team, especially for their standards of really high level football. But he was able to have some pretty good seasons, put up a bunch of numbers, and do what he could. It'd been very interesting to see if he stayed at Tennessee. Obviously, Tennessee wasn't the greatest when he left. If he would have stayed there and in that system, probably would have gotten a lot more love and might go a bit higher. Because as much as teams don't like to say it, it really does depend on your system and where you come from. But moving forward, we have Sean Tucker, the Syracuse running back. I have him as a low C tier running back. He has a really good offensive NFL line, NFL offensive line. But I just don't see it as much with him. There's a lot of guys like him in this draft, a lot of hard-nosed between the tackles guys, and I have him as a low C tier just for that. Great to see a guy at Cuse, though, doing well. So shout out Stewie. But we'll see how the rest of that goes, and if he can, prove me wrong and be a really good running back. But again, this C tier is kind of my idea of a backup level guys. I can actually do this right now. Let's do this right there. That will be. I guess we can do that as our tiers, and I'll make it a little bit better. So I'll do that going forward with the receivers, defensive ends, and the defensive backs. Up next, one of the darlings of the season, Tajai Spears, 1,600 yards and 19 touchdowns. I believe he led the league in yards or touchdowns. It was him and Dwayne McBride. I actually have him as the last one of my starters right now. He's right in between starter and backup with starter potential. I think he's could be in starting depending on what team he's on, or if he fits a good scheme. I have him really, really close on the edge there. But I did love his game. When you think of Tulane, they went from 2 wins to 12 wins, including beating USC in the Rose Bowl. Granted, there was some opt-outs on USC, but it was huge for them. They were the best Group of 5 team. Willie Fritz, shout out him. A lot of good stuff down there. But he was one of the main reasons. I think it's Pruitt or Pratt. the quarterback gets a lot of love when I think Tajai Spears was pretty much the main reason this team was really good. So shout out to Tajai. Hopefully he gets paid and starts in the league. But yeah, at 5'9", 201, this guy's big guy. Up next, my goodness, Bijan Robinson. He is the best prospect I have seen come out in a long time, basically regardless of position. This year, he's, for me, on the big board, positionless big board, he's number 1 or 2, him or Anderson, right? He's just all-world, 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, was actually a pretty solid receiver as well. 300 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, 5'11", 215, quick as heck. Insane cuts, speed. I could see him going as high as pick 10 or even pick 8 at the Falcons. Obviously, they'd get making fun of for drafting him that high, but Saquon went that high, and he's just as good, if not better, than Saquon. So, up next, a little home cooking for me. Shout out my dad. Central Michigan, Lou Nichols was a leading rusher last year. He's the top of my UDFA late-round flyers. Solid back. Did a lot of work over at Central Michigan. Surprised he didn't portal out. I thought he could have gone to Michigan State last year and tried to build on their success with Kenneth Walker. But he stayed over at Central Michigan and didn't have nearly as good of a season as he did the year before, and that kind of killed some of his draft stock. Up next, we have the track star, Devin Achane, out of Texas A&M. 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 3 reception touchdowns, 200 yards. One of the only shining lights on a really, really, really bad team over at College Station at A&M, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Really, really struggled this year, but he was pretty much the only reason this team was even competitive on that side of the ball. So I have him as a starter day one. He's more of a speedster, not as much between the tackles, so we'll see how that goes for a lot of people. But, again, kind of a fringe guy with Tajai here. Up next, we have the next guy on our list is Tank Bigsby out of Auburn. He's an all-pro in terms of name, but I have him right behind Chase Brown. Another one of these guys that could be a starter if they get hot and do good, but there's a lot of really, not mid running backs, because that's mid's kind of a negative connotation, but middle of the road, where it's like, you got a few elite guys, or there's about 3 guys I think that are going to be pretty solid starters, and then they got a lot of middle guys. Like this is going to get a really beefy row here, these 2 here. So he fits in that that area. You heard him a lot with bad Auburn teams, Tank Bigsby, with hearing Vern, those guys talk about him. But I really liked his game. Power running back. Again, name alone might get him a lot of deals, like if you see him end up in Philly or something, or run the ball, or even in Detroit, a run the ball team, got a running back named Tank. Come on, that's just too easy. And then up next we have Zach Evans out of Ole Miss. I have him as the top of my backup situational backs here. Really good player, but when Quinshon Judkins came in, he's a freshman, took his role and ran with it, literally and figuratively. So it really kind of hurt his stock. But I think it's a good buy-low opportunity. Get him in the 6th round, 5th round. Watch out. He could be a potential backup up to a starter. I could see him up here in a good year or 2. So that's what I have right there for Zach Evans. Next up, Muhammad Ibrahim from Minnesota. I have him as up here. I know he's gotten not as much love as I thought people were going to give him, but I really do like Ibrahim's game. Pro Football Focus has him going as a 7th round guy, maybe a UDFA. I think he should go in the mid 3rd or 4th round. On a bad Minnesota team the last few years, he's been the guy. He ran all over many teams. He had many different times. He was out there with 200 yards rushing, a few touchdowns. Played very, very, very well. So I think that he should definitely be on people's boards in the 3rd or 4th round. Day 3 guy, you get towards 1 or 2 o'clock on Saturday, I would expect his name to be off the board. The other very good group of 5 running back we have out of the University of Alabama, Birmingham, Dwayne McBride. I have him as the top backup with starter potential. On my board here, he played very well at UAB. tons of runs, tons of touchdowns, led the country, I believe, in yards and touchdowns. So credit to him for that. Really, really, really wanted to put him as a starter, but I just, I don't see it totally. Game doesn't really seem like he could go up there. We didn't see him against as many good teams, like with Tajai, right? Another group of 5 running back. His difference was he was able to play a USC, obviously bad defense, but they had a few games against Power 5 opponents, and we were able to see his production not really fall down despite the better defense. So we have Jahmyr Gibbs here. I almost want to put him up here. I really do, but I'm going to put him as the top starter because I think Bijan kind of deserves his own row with how good he is. We have Jahmyr Gibbs, really good pass-catching back out of the backfield, transfer from Georgia Tech, really played well, 5'9", 200 pounds, only not even 1,000 yards rushing. He had 927 with 7 touchdowns, but he had 444 reception yards and 3 touchdowns, which led all running backs. So he's a good pass-catching back out of the backfield, along with Bijan, right? I think, honestly, if you look at it, it's funny. It's like Zach Charbonnet is probably the best running back, and he's the best receiving back, and you combine them, and they both make Bijan. That's how good Bijan is. Probably I would say Bijan's the number 1 running back and number 1 receiving back, and these guys are 2 for each. But I think it depends on really what you want. A few years ago, it'd be like this, right? You want him first because he can run the ball, Zach. But now that it's getting away from that, Jahmyr is going to be probably the next running back off the board. And I'd be kind of shocked if he wasn't the second running back off the board at this point. Even though if you want a good running back between the tackles, Charbonnet might be your guy. Like if you put Charbonnet on like the Cowboys as like a change of pace back compared to Tony Pollard, who's kind of a bit more receiving back as well. That happens a lot. But I do see a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs in what Tony Pollard does. That's probably my player comp. And then finally, we have the man that helped TCU on their immaculate run this year, Keandre Miller. Have him as a backup starter potential at the bottom one. I think he can succeed. He's coming off of a knee injury, which is the only reason why he's this low here. Otherwise, he'd be probably up closer to Chase Brown. But again, really solid guy, great season. That knee injury probably is going to hurt a bit more than other positions, and with your explosiveness as a running back. I'm personally a big believer that the ACL injury doesn't matter anymore with how good medical advances are. But I have a feeling a lot of teams, especially with how deep it is, deep of a class, that it might still come into play. So unfortunately for Keandre, he's down here, but I think it's worth a flyer. Closing thoughts, yeah, you can see it's a deep running class, a lot of middle of the roads here. I expect, there could be a run on running backs. I know the position has been devalued on the free agency, so why not pick up a guy that can do pretty close to as good of a job as guys in the league and, have him for 4 years of team control and, at least, right, 5 if you're Bijan, on a lower salary. So I think there could be a lot of running backs, that could go out there because you see guys like Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler looking for trades and getting nothing in return. So that's why I got these guys going here. Let me know down below what you think. This link is down below in the description. And please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Very excited for the draft, and next up will be receivers. Peace.